Yeah, I still get kind of chills thinking about that. Hello, my name is Javan Bair. I'm the Community Engagement Specialist for the Marcus Institute for Brain Health. I also recently finished a graduate program at CU Boulder for journalism, and for my capstone project, I did a story on the art therapy program that we offer to our patients here at the Marcus Institute. I knew that I wanted to do my capstone on something related to here because I had seen this program change so many veterans and first responders' life positively. And when I started researching other stories that focused on, maybe veterans, TBI, post-traumatic stress, I started to find this reoccurring theme of, for lack of better words, doom and gloom that follows these subjects. There was very little talk about recovery or solutions to these problems. And so that was something I wanted to change the narrative on. And after going through or being a part of a number of the commencement ceremonies that we have for our patients when they complete treatment, a portion of that is usually them talking about their artwork that they created, the masks specifically. And I started to see these patients and these veterans really becoming transparent with the trauma that they had used to facilitate these projects. And after seeing that numerous times, I really thought that there was not just a story, but multiple stories to be told in that regard. Man, the first time I walked into the barracks art studio, I think what really stood out to me was that no two masks were the same. Displayed on the wall, Gayla keeps the masks that the patients donate to us, and seeing that each mask, although it was dealing with a similar kind of trauma with post-traumatic stress and traumatic brain injury, each one was an entirely different image with an entirely different story behind it. And so I wanted to expand on that and show that just because you've been injured in service, where a lot of the injuries that our patients sustain are very similar, the way that they work through that and heal through that is different for every person. And so that really stood out to me, and that was something I wanted to tell in this story. As a veteran dealing with our patients, we have a little bit of rapport just in that alone, and it allows them to be more receptive, more descriptive when talking to me. And as I was writing the story, I had a committee that was overseeing my capstone project, and one of the people helping me was a gentleman named Chuck Plunkett, who was the former editor for the Denver Post. And as I kept turning in drafts, the story was starting to flesh itself out a little bit, but Chuck encouraged me to include my own voice, which doesn't always happen in journalistic pieces. But he said that because of my background as a veteran, it would, me using my own voice and being fully transparent that I do work here, that this isn't just a scoop I found on my own, really allowed me to tell this story from a perspective that I think will resonate with other veterans that this story lands with. I think the most unexpected thing I learned from working with the veterans that did participate in this story is that the trauma where it all stems from this one facet of their lives of being in service. The trauma itself manifests itself differently in every person. And while Gayla facilitates one art program, it brings out a different story in each person. It brings out a different past. And to me, it showed that veterans are not just linked to that uniform, to that one portion of their life. There's so much before and after service that also plays a role in post-traumatic growth and with healing with TBIs. And yeah, just being able to see everyone use this one art modality to express themselves in so many different ways. So when I pitched this story originally to Gayla, she liked the idea, and the first thing she wanted to do was invite me to the final session she does with each cohort on their second to last day. And what that is they all sit in the long table in the art studio, and then in a clockwork fashion, everyone passes their mask around the table and has to, they don't know anything about the meaning behind the mask, and they have to say, if this were my mask, this is what I would feel. And I thought that I was going to be there in kind of an observatory role, maybe taking notes and taking photos, but that's not the way Gayla's art studio works, so I was fully immersed into the experience. And when it came my turn to get this one patient's particular mask, she had made this, it was a black mask, but then it had these like really striking purple lines throughout the whole mask that looked like that vibrance, the purple color, was breaking through the darkness. And that purple represented, I said, if this were my mask, I would say that this vibrant color surfacing underneath all this black is the real me coming out. And when I said that, the patient had this reaction where she looked at Gayla and looked at me and was very off-put and started saying, "Did you tell him? Did what?" Kind of thinking that Gayla had spilled the tea with me. And Gayla said, "No, I didn't tell him anything. He just is good at this." And it really resonated with me because I realized that although we're all hurt in different ways from our service, in a way we all have that relation together, and that showed me a whole new way to write this story, where I could express, kind of in a way, my own therapeutic response to being able to write this story. I was able to get some of my own, inner trauma or workings out by seeing the expressions of these other veterans. I think writing this piece as a veteran, in terms of vulnerability, it showed me that the importance of being vulnerable. When you are seeking treatment for any kind of trauma and you really want to recover, it showed me that in order to really receive what the Marcus Institute, for example, is going to give to people, you really have to lay it all out on the table. And doing that in a safe environment like the one that Gayla creates allows people to unpack so much of things that not that you can't do through talk therapy, but that just might be more difficult in a traditional talk therapy format. And in terms of identity, I think it's showing that these masks represent more than just the veteran's service, and more than just their injury, more than just the the time they spent with whatever branch on their chest, and showing that they are more than just a service member. They are human beings that are trying to better themselves. I think this story matters to the broader public because it shows veterans in an entirely different light. I had mentioned that before when I was doing research on this. I'm not the first journalist to do a story on art therapy with veterans, but it focuses, they all hyper-focus on the military identity. And what I wanted to do was step away from that and show the civilian audience that at the end of the day, veterans are just human beings. There's this cultural view that exists of veterans that they are, superhuman or capable of things that maybe others are not. And in certain circumstances, yeah, there's heroism and valor that some of our service members exercise that is kind of superhuman. But once that uniform is off, they are just a person. They are just an American like the rest of us. And I think that allowing civilians to see that vulnerable side of veterans will positively change the way that they look at service members. Instead of looking at them as this other class of people or these other types of people, they are just people that elected to do a difficult job, and they suffer just like everyone else, and they need help sometimes just like everyone else. Yeah, I hope that this story can change the way that we look at the resources that are available for veterans, because there's some really, really life-changing stuff out here, and it's downstairs. So.